gonna be a go job. It ain't gonna be a show job. Alright guys, so we got my F-150. It's already had a decent amount of bodywork to it, but it is not done. It is not ready for primer. We got a couple things we got to finish fixing up. It's had bed sides welded in it. It's had a lot of bodywork. However, as you guys can see right there, you can see it without even any gloss to it. We got a nice big old hump right in here. So we're going to have to basically take our filler out across this whole area right here and kind of fan it, you know, fade it into the rest of the bed side, you know, just to kind of get it to where it's not like a massive hump, speed hump right there in the middle of the bed. The rest of the truck looks really good. We got a lot of other little bodywork spots. They all came out pretty good. Most of the rest of it's pretty good. Still got a couple little, you know, little tiny pinholes and stuff we're gonna take care of, and this I'll probably just put a little bit of fill in that and cross my fingers. But we're just about there. We're almost ready for primer. So I think some of the body work I'm actually gonna do with the DA and just kind of just get it a little bit better than what it is. And then we also got the long block. All right, I might whip this baby out and give it a little bit of a block sand, but we're going to try and get this thing wrapped up. I definitely want to at least get it in primer today. The rest of this truck is in pretty good shape. You know, the paint is not in bad condition. It really just needs a scratch and spray, a freshen up. And that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm not doing anything crazy on this truck, guys. I literally just want to get it all one color, no rust holes, and just get it to where I can drive it down the road. You know, simple. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate for you guys with a Q-tip and some paint what our bed currently looks like and what we want it to look like. Okay, so the top image is what the bed currently looks like. Nice big old hump right in the center. The bottom image is what we want it to look like. So I'm going to take some paint here and show you guys. The filler is going to be acting as like the paint, right? So we're going to be adding more filler to basically feather out this area on the bed side. Now take a look at my block, okay? Nice, flat, straight block. Look at the gap we have, okay? Pretty bad, okay? That is nowhere near ready for paint, primer. It ain't ready for nothing, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and freshen up our sand scratches. We're gonna put some fresh 80 grit scratches over everything. And this is going to give us a good grip for our filler to bite into. I'm going to be using the Speedocoat Gold filler. This is a ultimate feather edging adhesive filler. It feather edges over scuff paint, over scuff metal. Very good stuff. As far as mixing the filler, guys, don't overcomplicate it, okay? You guys can see I do the twirl method. I spin it around on my pad. There's other guys that say, oh, well, you shouldn't do that because you're going to induce air into the filler and it's not going to, you know, blah, 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 blah. Guys, it doesn't matter, okay? You can flop this, you can spin it, you can twirl it. You can, if you want, you can jump up and down in your shop 10 times and clap your hands above your head. It does not matter. Any way of mixing this stuff, you're going to induce some type of air into your filler. The reason why I do the twirl method, okay, like the little spin method on my pad, is because you actually get the blue hardener mixed into the filler faster. So what does this do? This actually provides you a longer working time with your filler, because the faster you can get this stuff mixed up, the longer you have to basically work with it. Because if you're sitting there flopping it on the pad for 5 minutes, flop, flop, flop. Okay, now that blue hardener's been in that filler for quite some time now. So now you're going to have less time to actually get it on the metal. So we're just fanning it out. We're taking a good bit of filler over that entire repair area. Not all the way into the new bedside, because the new bedside, it's new metal, so it's straight. So it doesn't really need any filler. But we're just going ahead and taking it a good, I would say a good 12 to 14 inches over top of that repair. And I'll tell you, this first coat, it did almost nothing. I mean, the bodywork was that bad on the bedsides to where, I mean, I think I didn't film everything I did today, but I had to do a good solid 3 coats of filler. Fill, sand, and fill one last time, a third time, and sand again. That's what it took to get the bodywork even like halfway decent. And I mean, it still is not perfect, but we're getting it a lot better than what it is. So the filler, as you guys can see, feather edge is very nice. We got a couple spots we miss, you know. This is just a first coat, so you know, we're not stressing it too much. Now, one of the deepest, darkest tricks I'm going to tell you guys is this. There's a sweet spot with body filler, okay? Now that sweet spot is sanding it right after it starts to set up and harden up. If you wait, your filler will take forever to sand. So what you're gonna do is, as soon as that hardener, that body filler starts to harden up, and it's still like a tiny bit soft, you're gonna take your 40 grit with a DA, you're gonna knock down all your highs, okay? Knock it down, knock it down, knock it down. Then once you get it like mostly flat with your 40 grit, you're just gonna leave it alone. Just let it sit. Just let it sit, let it do its thing, let it fully adhere to the metal. And then you're gonna come back, you know, in say, I don't know, 5 minutes. It'll be probably a little bit harder and a little bit easier to sand without like ripping it right off the metal. Because if you sand it too soon, if you sand your filler too soon, I mean, you'll whip that filler right off the metal, because you're not giving it a chance to actually adhere to the metal. So give it about 5 minutes after you give it like a rough sanding with your 40 grit, and then you can come back with your 80 grit after that, and then start working on, you know, really getting it down and seeing what you're left to work with. So once your filler starts to look like this, go ahead and just stop. Let the filler fully dry up and fully cure. Because like I said, you're just going to keep ripping it right off that metal. It's not going to feather edge while it's still a little bit soft. So now we're going to move on to the long block. Now, I'm not trying to get it fully straight here, okay? Because this is only the first coat. But what I'm trying to do is knock down all of the highs to ensure that when we put filler, our second coat of filler on, we're not just putting more filler over our high spots and making our high spots even higher, okay? Because that would not be beneficial at all. So we're putting on the second coat, and this is where things kind of start to come together. This is where you're going to notice, especially on a really big spot like this, you know, you're going to start to see, okay, the lines are starting to come together, starting to get a little straighter. Okay, you know, we're coming down the home run stretch. We might be able to get primer on it after a second coat or a third coat or whatever. This second coat, you guys can see I feathered it out really nice. And the beautiful thing about this Speedacoat Gold filler, look at those edges, guys. Look at those edges. It feather edges before you even sand it. And then this is after a third coat of filler. Everything just feathered out beautifully. Look at those edges, guys. And that's over bare metal. I mean, it's very hard nowadays to find a filler that will feather edge that smoothly over bare metal. A lot of these fillers now, because of the EPA and everything like that, they've been changing up the resins in these things, and it's very hard to get this stuff to stick to bare metal nowadays. It's just, yeah. So very good stuff. Very good quality filler. Now we are moving on to the final step of the bodywork process, which is the SS2790G. This is a premium high build filler, primer, excuse me. You know, you really only need about 2 to 3 coats of this stuff to get the build that you're looking for. I mean, I'm spraying it unreduced, and I mean, 2 to 3 coats of this stuff unreduced, is really, in all honesty, the equivalent of like one coat of like a body filler, like a finishing glaze. You know, I'm obviously putting that on conservatively. I mean, if you're putting on a thick coat of glaze, you're not even going to compare to primer. But, you know, this stuff builds really thick. It has a really, really high build. And any little bit of waviness that we have left in our bodywork, you know, any little tiny bit of waviness, not big waves, but, you know, little tiny ripples and stuff like that, you know, after about 2 to 3 coats of this stuff and you let it shrink back, you know, you can block sand this stuff out, you know, ultra smooth and flat. And the beauty of it is, you know, you can paint right over it. You don't need sealer, guys. You don't need to put sealer on every single job that you do. You know, this stuff, especially if we're going to be doing a single stage paint job on this truck, you know, you sand this stuff with some 320 and some 400, and you know, you're ready for paint. You know, you don't have to go back and, all right, well, now we're going to seal or prime and all this other stuff. Well, I mean, that to me kind of defeats the purpose of putting this stuff on. You know, this stuff, I like to just put my paint right over this stuff. You know, no sealer, no additional primer filler, just sand this stuff out smooth, get it smooth, and if it looks good, sometimes you reprime, sometimes, you know, I've seen some other guys out there that they'll do like a reprime, and then they'll reduce their final primer. They'll reprime with like a 25% reduction, so it lays out like super flat, and that's a good method. Like I totally respect that. But for cheaper jobs like this, where we're just trying to get it in and out, quick little beep bop job, you know, I'm sanding this primer out and I'm spraying. That's kind of what you do. So yeah, it's kind of what we're going for on this job. Everything turned out really good. The bodywork came out a lot better than what it was. It's still not a show job, but it's definitely going to be good enough to ride around town and pick up car parts and, you know, Sunday runs to the grocery store to get my water for the week and whatnot, stuff like that.